pork. MNLD crushed the military-backed party in the last election in 2020, and by holding the election only in areas it controls, it can better control the outcome, yeah? And there's also this new law enacted by the military that bans any criticism of the poll, and some 200 people have been detained, some threatened with years in prison, many for simply voicing their opposition on social media. So intimidation and coercion have been the norm in the run-up to this election.
And what about international reaction?
Well, most Western governments, the UN and human rights groups are calling it a sham, but the military's main suppliers, Russia and China, have endorsed it. In neighboring China's case, because it has extensive infrastructure projects in Myanmar, oil and gas pipelines, a so-called economic corridor to the Indian Ocean, it wants to keep, and China wants stability. And despite the civil war, it still sees the military and its election as the least bad way to achieve that. Yun Sun directs the China program at the Stimson Center in Washington, D.C.
You could call them an ulcer or a tumor in the country's domestic politics, but it's not going anywhere. 5 years of civil war did not kick them out, and the Chinese were not tilting the balance of power in a way that the military will be forced out.
In fact, it's just done the opposite, Scott. I mean, it's reined in these rebel groups it exerts influence over in the north of the country, and it's told the largest of those groups to stop harming others. And it's worked. After a disastrous couple of years for the Myanmar military on the battlefield, it's turning things around with this help from China, with better weapons and just better tactics overall.
And Michael, does the election have a chance of ending the civil war?
No. The war will continue. The opposition won't stop, though it might get even more fragmented and disorganized. And the military will continue its brutal tactics, including bombing hospitals and other civilian targets to intimidate the population. But there have been thousands of civilians killed so far, Scott, and more than 3 million people have been displaced, and even more are facing acute food insecurity. And they're just exhausted. And in that context, the election could be tempting for some, says longtime Myanmar analyst David Matheson.
For a lot of people, the sentiment is, we hate the regime, but at least they've got a plan. They've got a way to kind of get us out of this and stabilize, and we don't see that there'll be a bright democratic future, that it could be something.
Well, it's a pretty low bar. Way too low for those who vowed to continue the fight, like doctor-turned-rebel commander Kota Mar, who told NPR he sees this war as an existential moment in the history of his country, a chance to get the military out of politics for good. If you see the crisis in the country as a disease, he says, this election is like injecting steroids into a patient. The pain can be eased temporarily, but it's going to be worse in the long term, he says. That's why we reject the elections. But the military, Scott, will make sure its proxy party wins anyway, restores some stability and maybe some of its legitimacy abroad. But the war, it won't end.
Reporter Michael Sullivan in Thailand. Have you tried to find a new primary care doctor lately? Roughly 100 million Americans don't have one. Massachusetts, a woman called 10 physicians. None were taking new patients. A few could see her in 2 years. And the woman learned about an AI-based option. Reporter Martha Biebinger of member station WBUR takes it from there.
The woman, Tammy McDonald, has high blood pressure and had a recent breast cancer scare. So she was in close touch with her primary care physician until her doctor's sudden death this summer. McDonald shifted from sadness to shock fast.
We live in Boston and we're supposed to have this great medical care, and I couldn't get my mind around the fact that we just didn't have any doctors.
McDonald grew anxious about refilling her prescriptions. She reviewed a letter from her healthcare network, Mass General Brigham, and noticed the link to an AI-enhanced telehealth alternative called Care Connect. McDonald downloaded an app, spent about 10 minutes chatting with the AI agent about what she needed, and scheduled a virtual visit with an actual doctor.
I think I got an appointment the next day or 2 days later. It was just such a difference from being told I had to wait 2 years.
McDonald has used Care Connect 4 times since it launched in September. Sometimes McDonald only interacts with the chatbot or AI agent. Her virtual visits have all been with the same doctor, one of 12 on staff for Mass General Brigham Care Connect. McDonald still wants a primary care provider she can see in person. For now, she doctor on call 24/7.
This is a logical solution in the short term, but at the end of the day, it's the patient who's feeling the aftermath of all of the bigger things going on in healthcare.
Primary care doctors like Michael Burnett are dealing with those bigger picture things going on in healthcare. He describes rushed, complex patient visits, then evenings spent updating medical records and responding to patient messages. Primary care doctors earn 30 to 40% less on average than specialists like cardiologists or anesthesiologists. Barnett, who is also a Mass General Brigham doctor, says spending money to create a cheaper, virtual, AI-enhanced system will erode morale and push more physicians out.
It's actually undermining our capacity to have a primary care system that can serve more patients, which is what we need. But instead, we're using it to basically fill a gap. That sounds like a Band-Aid for a broken system to me.
Care Connect is not just a Band-Aid, says Dr. Helen Ireland. She's a primary care physician who manages the program at Mass General Brigham. Hospitals have to find new ways, she says, to offer patients primary care.
This is part of the puzzle of how to help with the current crisis and really serve those patients who want virtual care.
Care Connect is also available through 5 other hospital networks around the country. Dr. Stephen Lin, who started the Stanford Healthcare AI Applied Research Team, argues it has a limited role.
In its current state, the safest use of this tool is for more urgent care issues, your upper respiratory tract infections, your urinary tract infections, your musculoskeletal injuries, your rashes.
Lynn, who is also chief of primary care at Stanford University School of Medicine, says patients with multiple chronic conditions like high blood pressure and diabetes are better off with a regular doctor they see in person. K-Health, the company that helped create Care Connect, counters that it is not just for urgent needs, that patients with more complex conditions are receiving safe, effective care. And Lynn agrees to a point.
I would rather these patients get care, if that care can be safe, than not get care at all.
More patients will soon have a choice about whether to try Care Connect. Mass General Brigham is expanding it to all residents of Massachusetts and New Hampshire in February. For NPR News, I'm Martha Biebinger in Boston.
Readers are always looking for something new to devour. There are many who also want to be readers, but they might need a little push. Consider Books We Love to be a gentle shove. NPR's list of best reads has tons of suggestions for your to-be-read pile, including these novels recommended by our co-authors.
Hi, my name is Kalyani Saxena, and I'm an associate producer with Here and Now. The book that I am going to be talking about today is The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. This is not a book you're going to get over easily. It's razor sharp and designed to cut you deeply. You'll be moved. You'll probably cry. And by the end, you'll say something like, "Thank you for delivering my suffering so beautifully."
mostly set in Scotland, and the main character, Pen, is sort of coming into herself in college, and she's this great group of girlfriends, and she's learning about herself, but also uncovering the mystery of her parents and their divorce. And because she's named for this actual mystery writer in Scotland, she ends up with that family, goes to their castle in Scotland, so it has sort of layers of mystery and coziness and coming of age. I just can't recommend it enough.
Once again, the life cycle of the common octopus, the bewitching, Takigor, Summer, Code of Justice, Everlasting. For more books we love, you can head to npr.org/bestbooks. And you're listening to Weekend Edition from NPR News.
This is the Engines of Our Ingenuity from Houston Public Media News 88.7.
Today, we learn to use a new axe. The University of Houston's College of Engineering presents this series about the machines that make our civilization run and the people whose ingenuity created them. A new kind of felling axe arose in late colonial America. It was the familiar axe with its gracefully curved handle and a heavy counterweight on the side opposite the blade. It was quite different from the European axe with its straight handle fixed to the back of a long, narrow blade. For better or worse, the new axe converted our forests and farmlands. It transformed the new continent. When European critics mistrusted it, it took extra skill to wield it because it used new principles of balance. Still, by the time of the 1851 Crystal Palace exhibition, axe heads turned up as primary American trade goods. When English makers copied them, they stamped their imitations with American makers' names. Such an axe came into being because American workers were free of any canon of established technology. Our early craftsmen took great pride in experimenting, and it often paid off handsomely. So it should be no surprise that our craftsmen invented a second radical axe head design about the time of the Civil War, the double-bitted axe. Lumbering became a major northern industry, and mythical Paul Bunyan rose to represent it. Armed with this new axe, Bunyan was the prototypical lumberjack. He was wood-cutting carried to a new level, deforesting America from Maine to Minnesota. Historian Ronald Jager tells the story of Bunyan's new double-bitted axe. It was symmetrical about the handle with wide blades on either side. You and I have seen them, but out of the corner of the eye. The U.S. Post Office got it wrong when they issued the Paul Bunyan stamp. They showed him carrying the old counterbalance axe. The Boy Scouts award Paul Bunyan's woodsman emblem that properly shows a double-bitted axe and nothing else. But this new axe required new skills, while it also provided a new cutting efficiency. Its aerodynamics are such that if you know how to swing it cleanly, it offers hardly any drag. Let it catch the wind just a little, and it can be dangerously unstable. The northern lumberjacks, this new breed of skilled workers, kept one side of their axe sharp, and they let the other one be nicked and blunted. The sharp blade was for cutting cleanly into wood. If they saw anything dubious, like a tough knot, they'd locate the handle and use the rough blade. European experts again looked at the new American axe, and they again declared it awkward. But this time they didn't change their minds, nor did the new axe travel very far west of Minnesota, while Paul Bunyan with his double-bitted axe became an important chapter in the history of the axe. The chapter was an isolated one. The history of the axe is the history of America. Henry David Thoreau caught America's long love affair with the axe when he wrote about borrowing one during his stay by Walden Pond. He said, "The owner of the axe, as he released his hold on it, said that it was the apple of his eye, but I returned it sharper than I received it." I'm John Leadhart at the University of Houston, where we're interested in the way inventive minds work.
A transcript of this Engines of Our Ingenuity episode number 1497 is online at uh.edu/engines. Additional episodes are available by podcast.
This
This service exists because of you. While you rely on local programs, NPR News, weather, and traffic, none of it's possible without your support. Make your tax-deductible year-end gift today at HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate.
Hello, I'm Frank Billingsley, and our show Hello Houston on News 88.7 airs from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. weekdays, but you can always enjoy our show by checking out the podcast version of Hello Houston wherever you get your podcasts.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. You can also check out all of our shows, isolated interviews, and even YouTube Shorts of Hello Houston on the Houston Public Media YouTube page.
It's Hello Houston. Watch us on our YouTube channel, listen to our podcast, and listen to us live weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. here on News 88.7.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston system, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about OPE meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
Research backs up the idea that people sent to jails and prisons are incredibly vulnerable to drug death. Federal data released by the Biden administration showed up to 1 in 4 overdose deaths nationally in 2021 involved people recently released from jail or prison. H says the treatment for her opioid addiction was interrupted when she was incarcerated earlier this year. She says the Alaska Department of Corrections denied her medication and that she started using illicit opioids again when she got out.
It happens super fast. You run into people, you see people, there's 1,000 different ways.
Interviews with healthcare providers like Dr. Spencer and formerly incarcerated people like H indicate that many who want medication while incarcerated don't get it. Alaska's Department of Corrections, or DOC, declined repeated requests for an interview for this story, but they responded to questions over email. They confirmed that they only give short-term medication treatment to people who were already getting it before they went to jail or prison, and said that no one gets treatment past 30 days, unless they're pregnant. When they're released, DOC says they give some people a list of providers they can go to for treatment. But Spencer says best practice is to make it much easier for every inmate to start on medication and to provide them with a transition plan to help them stay safe after release.
If a patient isn't continued on their medication or isn't offered medication, you're really missing that opportunity to stabilize this life-threatening disease while they're in DOC custody.
DOC says their aim is to expand access, and they hope to pilot a more comprehensive program by February of 2026. Spencer says in the absence of comprehensive treatment, her team tries their best to provide care for local people before and after incarceration. She wishes Alaska's system was more like Rhode Island's. In 2016, the state started offering treatment for substance use disorders to anyone eligible in DOC care. And within a year, there had been around a 60% reduction in overdose death rates among people recently incarcerated. Dr. Jennifer Clark developed the program as medical director at the Rhode Island Department of Corrections. She says before she could freely dispense medication for substance use disorders,
it was like practicing medicine with one hand tied behind my back.
And she says the results of the new program were palpable. When people weren't going through withdrawal and having cravings, they could focus better on recovery.
I heard multiple times people would tell me this was the first time I could really participate in the behavioral therapy.
But Clark says it wasn't always easy. The program required $2 million in funding to start, the backing of the then governor, and it had to overcome many logistical hurdles. And she says there was stigma.
I was called frequently a drug pusher. So with the medical staff, I would just talk data. I'm like, we're scientists, we're going to follow the science.
Other states have been slow to develop similar life-saving medication programs. In a recent JAMA study representing over 3,000 U.S. jails, fewer than half offered some access to medication for opioid use disorder.
I think it's still a patchwork of programs.
That's for Donna Chandler, a psychologist formerly at the National Institute on Drug Abuse. She says medication can be hard to access for anyone with opioid use disorder. And often jails and prisons don't have providers with the expertise necessary to give the medications. And because medications like buprenorphine are opioids themselves and help alleviate symptoms of withdrawal, there are black markets inside jails and prisons.
You'll hear a lot of concerns about diversion and about pills being diverted, but there are ways to deal with and get around that, either through other formulations or through the ways in which you would administer the medication.
In the meantime, some patients like H in Ninilchik may only be able to get treatment outside incarceration.
It would just be so huge to be able to get it in jail too, and then gain that strength to be able to help yourself when you did hit the streets again.
She says it's really scary that people leaving incarceration die of overdose at such high rates. She's thankful she survived last time, even though she returned to use. It's unclear when H will start her new jail sentence, but she hopes this time, when she gets out, with the help of the clinic, she'll go right back to treatment. If she does, it may save her life. For NPR News, I'm Rachel Cassandra in Ninilchik, Alaska.
Look, wonder what really lasts. Ian McEwan's latest is set in Britain, a century from now, an island state that has become an archipelago, partly submerged by rising seas. Tom Metcalf is an academic who's devoted his working life to finding a poem, Corona for Vivian. The great poet Francis Blundy composed and read for his wife at a dinner in 2014. But that poem has never been found. What did it say? What did it say about them? How did it disappear? What We Can Know is Ian McEwan's 19th novel. Of course, he's the Booker Prize-winning author of Amsterdam and other acclaimed works, including Atonement. And he says his vision of 22nd century Britain comes after a very long 21st century.
What's happened is that the 21st century has been a long, tough journey. We've limped from crisis to crisis, 2 or 3 nuclear wars, colossal migration, and population has roughly halved. And England is a rather sleepy archipelago, as you said, but life goes on, and it's rather dull and rather conventional. Universities are still holding out, and interest persists in our time. They look back on us, they see a great deal of craziness, dereliction of duty to the future, but also risk-taking, highly inventive, and my scholar, Tom Metcalf, is full of envy for our time as he researches into the life and milieu of this poet and the quest for this missing poem.
What does he envy?
Envy for the variety of cultural expression, rock concerts, gay pride marches, orchestrals, operas, you name it, cheese rolling competitions, 2 guys playing golf on the moon, people going 4,000 or 5,000 miles for a week's holiday. And he keeps thinking back on all the things that could have been saved and weren't, like biodiversity, getting our minds properly around climate change.
What makes the poem, A Corona for Vivian, so hard to track down?
Well, he reads it aloud, as you said, at this dinner for friends and family, and he presents it to her. He's destroyed every other single draft, every single note about it. He's written out a fair copy on vellum, on parchment. He hands it to her after the reading, and we don't know what she did with it. Well, we have to wait for more or less the last sentence of the novel to find out.
And what makes the past so difficult to uncover for the society you're describing?
Well, that question really takes us to the heart of my title, what we can know about the past, what we can guess about the future, and what we can know about each other is crucial to the unfolding of this novel. So Tom Metcalf has access to tens of thousands of items of information about Francis Blundy's life, his daily emails, his texts, all his interviews, all his lectures, everything. But to what extent does that actually bury the truth? A scholar researching in the 19th century, where he might be looking at Napoleon's letters, wrote about 3,000 words a day in letter form, Darwin's letters, like also running into the 19th and 3/4 the way through the 20th century. The letter writing was much more thoughtful, much more depth to the kind of thing we send each other, like, I'm on my way, see you at 11. Help me doctor my tooth hurts. He has to wade through, and part of the pursuit of this novel is precisely as the title says. And the second half is taken up by complete someone of thinking and loving and daily life. When Francis Lundy reads his poem, which is a long poem and in a rather difficult form, I have the privilege of going round the table and entering the minds of all his listeners and what they're thinking. And of course, a lot of them are daydreaming, and they've had quite a lot to drink, a lot of wine, several gin and tonics, so they don't quite stay on the poem itself. Now that's the kind of access we do not have in real life, and why one often has to point out that fictional realism, which can enter other minds, is an extraordinary artifice. And we haven't yet found another instrument quite as fine-tuned as the novel to measure fates through time, rise and fall and pulse of thought and feeling, and the relationship of individuals to their surroundings, to their societies. When we do, I guess the novel will be dead, but we haven't found it yet.
Before we let you go, Mr. McHugh, may we ask you to hear something from our editor, Martin Patience?
Sure.
Hello there, sir.
Hi.
I guess the reason I'm here is literature makes a difference. Literature can change lives. In fact, it changed my life very profoundly. I'm actually getting a bit emotional. I read one of your books. I split up with my girlfriend. I didn't see her for more than 3 years. And I read one of your books. It was called Chess on the Beach. And yet, it's profound for me. As you will. It's about long-term regret. And so in that moment, I got in contact with a woman I hadn't seen for 3 years. And I said, I'm coming to New York to see you. And she said, I don't want to see you.
I think my specific sentence was, I don't know if I'll have time for you. But I was there to pick him up at the airport.
Yes, and we get married a couple of years, 2 or 3 years later. We now have a son.
Good
14 years.
Very pleased to hear that. Rekindled lovers, I think is the term for it. Rekindlers are people who love once, part from each other, meet again and fall in love again, and stay together. So you are rekindlers if you didn't know what you were.
Martin Patience and Arpin Munir.
Don't ever leave each other again.
Ian McEwan, his latest novel, What We Can Know. Thank you so much for being with us.
Been a great pleasure.
This is Weekend Edition from NPR News. I'm Scott Simon.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from Eric and Wendy Schmidt through the Schmidt Family Foundation, working toward a healthy, resilient, secure world for all. On the web at theschmidt.org. From Jarl and Pamela Moe, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts. And from the Walton Family Foundation, working to create access to opportunity for people and communities by tackling tough social and environmental problems. More information is at waltonfamilyfoundation.org.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe, R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul. Music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
You come to the New Yorker Radio Hour for conversations that go deeper with people who you really want to hear from, whether it's Bruce Springsteen or Questlove or Olivia Rodrigo, Liz Cheney, or some of my extraordinarily well-informed colleagues at the New Yorker. So join us every week on the New Yorker Radio Hour for real conversations that matter.
The New Yorker Radio Hour, Sundays at 9 a.m. on News 88.7.
I'm Ira Plato. When did you first get captivated by science? Astronaut Leland Melvin says his interest was sparked literally when his mother gave him a chemistry set.
You know, I needed this explosion. I burned her carpet. She ran in the room, and I got a spanking. But my brain was activated to science.
Activate your brain to science on Science Friday from WNYC Studios.
Science Friday, every Friday, 1 p.m. on News 88.7.
This is your NPR station, KUHS Houston, News 88.7. Service the University of Houston. Get local breaking news anytime. Listen to this on your favorite devices,
Today in Planet Money, a drug that is changing people's lives is also challenging the traditional way we buy and sell medicine.
And I'm Guy Raz. Today, A. Shu, founder of Chesapeake Bay Candle, joins me on the How I Built This advice line to share some personal insights with two up-and-coming entrepreneurs about how to find customers.
You need to meet people where they shop. They shop on TikTok, they shop on Instagram, people shop everywhere.
It's an hour of economics and innovation on How I Built This.
And Planet Money from NPR.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Giles Snyder. New York Governor Kathy Hochul says utility crews are on standby because of a major snowstorm slamming the region.
We are very aggressive about deploying utility crews before a storm hits. So they're pre-positioned, and if they need to activate, they can make sure to get the power on as soon as humanly possible.
Hochul and the governor of New Jersey have declared states of emergency. Rob Lane from member station WBUR in Boston reports conditions could make holiday travel treacherous.
The storms will bring the first major snowfall of the year to some parts of the country. Mark Shieldrop of AAA Northeast says people should be careful on the road. He expects many drivers won't get a switch to winter tires and may be out of practice in terms of dealing with longer stopping distances.
They follow too closely, they're going too quickly, and unexpected things happen on the road, and you have to make an abrupt stop, and that's when bad things happen.
Shieldrop adds an extra word of caution that even on plowed roads, cold pavement can affect tire traction. For NPR News, I'm Rob Lane in Boston.
Ukrainian officials say Russian drone and missile attacks on Kyiv and the surrounding region killed at least one person and injured dozens. The attacks came a day before President Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to meet with President Trump in Florida to discuss efforts to end Russia's invasion. BBC Samir Hussein reports that Zelensky says the bombardment shows that Russia does not want to end the war.
Into this morning, in fact, the air raid sirens have been sounding off. There are still drones that are coming into Ukrainian airspace, and according to Ukrainian officials, there were some 500 drones that were launched from Russia over Ukraine and some 20-odd missiles as well. The main target has been the capital here in Kyiv, and there has been some infrastructure damage there, and according to the Ukrainian military, there has been damage to some residential buildings here as well.
And Cambodia have agreed to a ceasefire that could end 3 weeks of fighting that killed more than 100 people.
The ceasefire signed by the two countries' defense ministers says both countries have agreed to halt their artillery attacks, rocket barrages, and air attacks by TIE fighter jets on Cambodian targets. The two countries have been involved in fierce combat for weeks that began in July and reignited earlier this month. Hundreds of thousands on both sides have been displaced by the fighting, funded by an early French colonial map, Cambodia's then ruler, that's been disputed by the Thai side. The 72-hour lull is dependent on both sides honoring the ceasefire. For NPR News, I'm Michael Sullivan in Chiang Rai, Thailand.
You're listening to NPR News. Rain may have eased in Los Angeles, but officials say there is still a risk of flash flooding. Days of heavy rain led to flooding and mudslides in Southern California. The mountain town of Brightwood seems to have borne the brunt of the damage. Mudslides buried cars there, crested the homes, and washed out roads. Officials say firefighters rescued 100 people Thursday night in Los Angeles. Israel has formally recognized the self-declared Republic of Somaliland as an independent state. There's no to do so. Michael Colobi reports from Nairobi. There has been immediate reaction to the announcement.
In a swift response, Somalia's government chairman Israel's Northern State. Somaliland declared independence from Somalia in 1991, but until now, it had not been officially recognized as an independent state by any country. In a statement, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel recognizes Somaliland as a sovereign state and plans to immediately expand its relations with Somaliland through extensive cooperation in various sectors. Meanwhile, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mahmoud Yusuf, said he rejects any recognition of Somaliland, adding that the African Union had an unwavering commitment to the unity of Somalia. For NPR News, I'm Michael Kaluki in Nairobi.
He was a long-time member of the English indie rock band The
it also opens the door to these kind of copycats that people like Phil were seeing online. The way it works is these copies, which are not generics, they were coming from something called compounding pharmacies.
These are a special kind of pharmacy that mixes up custom versions of drugs. For instance, if a little kid who can't swallow pills needs a drug that only comes in pill form, the compounding pharmacy can make them a liquid version. They can even make it cherry flavored. Or if a patient is, say, allergic to a certain preservative, they can formulate a version of a pill that doesn't have it.
Think about mortar and pestle, right? That's really what kind of the heart of compounding is. And that's how we made drugs for centuries.
Same way you make guacamole.
That's how you make guacamole, yes. But you're mixing chemicals.
During an official shortage, compounding pharmacies aren't limited to mixing up custom medicines. They're allowed to pitch in and make more or less copies of the drug that's in short supply, even if that drug is still patented.
And for obesity drugs, that little backup system immediately opened up a big opportunity. Compounding pharmacies around the country, big and small, started jumping in and filling prescriptions.
So some patients, if they live near a compounding pharmacy, could pick it up there. But lots of people filled these new prescriptions